Hear it really.
Well, good afternoon. Today, it's Mental Health Monday, and why not have my sister girl on here? And would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, my name's Robert Romanos with the CHR program with the Department of Health.
So, what it is, yo? Um,
They're not even
what
on.
exactly? Yeah. What exactly do you do?
I do home visits. I transport patients to their appointments, all the way from I've been to Sealing, Hammond, Elk City, taking them to the city or to Edmond for their appointments to make sure that they get their appointments or their follow-ups.
That's cool. We appreciate the work that you do. And so, what motivated you to get on today?
Um, I came up here and got talked into getting on the couch.
Well, I'm glad it's me that could get you on the couch. But how
Been a
long
long time coming.
how long how long have we known each other?
I would say at least almost 20 years.
I would say way longer than that.
Okay.
I was a kid. I was a kid at all y'all's Lucky Star parties. I was I was a little kid. I'd
Oh,
be
well,
at the
apparently
Lucky
I
Star
didn't see you,
Well,
but you saw me.
yeah. Kind of hard not to notice. Oh, Bob. But I've known Robert for a good while. We became good friends over the years, and I give him hell, but I appreciate who he is because he's not afraid to be himself. So I think he was kind of in question about what we would talk about today.
Yes.
And is there anybody that you want to give a shout out? It might be somebody's birthday or something today.
I already say happy birthday to Mingo. I'm trying to think of everybody else that has a birthday today.
Baker
I know.
Mayfield.
I don't be following all like that.
Well, I do appreciate you getting on here today.
Thank
Do you feel like with the job that you have, you get a lot of one-on-one time with your clients. Do you feel like there's a time where maybe they have spoken up about maybe a mental health crisis that they're going through?
No, not really. They just they're a lot of them
Say, turn it up.
are they they don't open up to me when they first get in the car.
Yeah.
And then I usually only have them sit in the front seat with me, so that way they're beside me and they're not. They feel like, okay, I'm talking to them, and I'm not having to holler or whatever. But I've had a lot of them just be like really quiet for a little bit, and then once I get to telling them who my family is, where I'm from, you know, my family's from Hammond, Clinton area, and
Ah,
yeah. But anyways,
I'm just kidding.
yeah, I ain't even wearing socks today, but these are actually my legs. Yeah, they that white. But yeah, they'll open up and then they'll start talking, and we'll just get to carrying on, and sometimes laughing, and that way. And I ask them, what are they going for, and they sometimes they'll tell me, sometimes they won't, and anyways, I just keep talking to them, trying to get them to,
Ease up.
yeah. And then by the time when we're coming back from the appointment, they just all talk.
Yeah.
And then we get some that get in the car from the time I pick them up until I let them off. They're talking.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And I love those ones. It's I got some from Longdale, Canton, you know, Sealing. I found a lot of my met a lot of more of my relatives when I pick up people in Hammond.
Yeah.
Because of who my mom
Yeah.
was.
Who everybody knows everybody. It's a small world.
Exactly.
Small world.
And it's crazy, when I run into people that I know or that know me or my family. And because I just recently met somebody that I took that knew my grandparents and knew my aunts and uncles, and it's because a couple of my I only knew a few of my aunts and uncles growing up, because a few of them had passed away before
Yeah.
I could remember. So
That's cool. I feel like I had like a similar experience this weekend with my aunt Zola. Uh, her last name's Little Man. It felt so good to meet somebody that knew my great grandma personally,
oh yeah.
like knew her.
Mhm.
And even when she was born, they gave her my great grandma's Indian name.
Oh wow.
Yeah, like so it like you know to hear how it's been passed down all these years, and it even put it in my head that I think one of my granddaughters, I think they deserve to have to carry that, and not because of where it came from, but because of who has it now.
Oh yeah.
I think a lot of my sister Tracy, so I thought it was cool, like to see like how that history, like uh how it showed up in my life today.
Yeah.
And it felt good. That felt real good. But also something else is how long have you been sober?
I have been sober 13 and a half years. My sober date was 11/25, 9/25, 2011, and it was a cold turkey thing.
Wow. That's pretty cool. We appreciate you sharing that with us. And one of the things, it is Mental Health Monday. So, like, after you stopped, the alcohol, um, what was like one of the ways? Because what brought on my addictions was the mental health crisis. I didn't know how to deal with a lot of. What was like one of the healthy ways that you learned how to deal with life after you got sober?
Just you know, talking about my alcoholism, my drug addiction at the time, and telling people, because once I got sober and got off of everything, it was like I felt like a preacher,
Yeah.
because I just felt like I had to tell everybody,
Everybody, yeah.
and I had to tell them exactly, this is, but then after a while, it got to the point to where I felt like I was really preaching, and I didn't want,
Yeah,
I
you
didn't
don't want
want
to come
people,
off like
yeah, I didn't want to come off that way, but I finally understood it, that this is the life that I should have been living to begin with,
yeah.
and there were things that caused me to go into be alcohol and drugs, and it was a lot.
Yeah. Would you like to tell us a little bit maybe about your background, where you're from, how you ended up around these parts?
Okay, well, I was born in San Diego, California. I lived there until I was 16 years old. My mom and dad divorced, and my mom being from Oklahoma, she when I finished 10th grade out in California, she moved us to Oklahoma, in Oklahoma City, and I remember pulling into Oklahoma City just barely awake, and um, seeing the yellow lights, and then getting up the next day and walking outside and looking around and going back in there and told her, I said, you got to send me back to California. I can't live here,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
And as a 16-year-old, I used to body surf. I used to skateboard. I used to do all sorts of things when I was, when I was growing up in California and being a teenager. And then, moving to Oklahoma, it all stopped. It was just like it all stopped. And then, my mom and dad were alcoholics, and I swore that I would never be like my parents. And for 15 years, I was just like my parents. You know,
Yeah.
I was just like them, and I just, it took me getting in trouble a lot. That last time that got me on the road to where I need to be now. It's an everyday thing, and the things that I believe is that the things that we go through in our lives, whether it's good, whether it's bad, is what makes us the people we are today.
Definitely.
So I've always been a good person, but I'm a better person now.
Yeah. So,
So
well, that's good. I remember we were
don't be
everyone.
calling me out on nothing.
No. One
'Cause I
time,
said I remember.
one time we were all at the bar, and I got to meet your daughter. And I thought that was pretty cool.
Yes. Yeah.
And that's been a while ago. I'm sure your grandbabies.
Yes, I'm upset because I got an 18-year-old granddaughter that's fixing to graduate on the 14th.
Wow.
I think it's the 14th. Yeah. Huh? 17th. Yeah.
Well, that's pretty cool. Well, congratulations.
Thank you.
That's huge. That's huge. Then was that 18 years ago? Nah, it can't be the same one. No, I don't think it was the same one.
Okay, I got the oldest one. It's Rebecca. The middle one is Jessica. I know you don't know my youngest one because her name's Gabby. Because everybody always thought that I had only had two daughters.
Yeah, I
And
think
then when I start talking about the last one, they're like, "I thought you only had two."
Yeah, it might have been the middle one.
Jessica.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I just remember meeting her, because I'd known you for so long, and you were all proud in the bar. Hey, meet my daughter, meet my daughter, meet my daughter. So I was just happened to be right there, so barfly. So
Yeah, weren't we all at
yeah. So do we have any comments? Anybody got any questions or anything?
Everyone's just young and excited that Bob's on the
Definitely.
Now I see. What's up, Bob? Hey, Janelle. Hey, Drew.
Sandra. He made it on.
Hey, Isaac. Yes, they finally talked me into getting on this couch.
Arian said Bob, Bobanowski, Bob and Weave.
Barbarino.
Yeah, I see that. Arian, why ain't you here?
Well, something else that I thought about was, when you feel like you're coming up against something, or you have some kind of trial or tribulation in your life, how do you deal with it today? Do you put it on Teams or? Yeah.
Well, I figure if I put it on Teams, that I will have some sort of interaction and some sort of, I guess, like a reassurance thingy. Because even though that I've been, sober as long as I have,
Uh-huh.
and some of the things that I've gone through, that I still feel that I need that reassurance, from somebody. If I'm having like a bad day, or if everything's going, I just need that reassurance. And sometimes when I reach out, like that, and most of the time I just, then when I get the negativity, then that just it's like, why did I put that out there like that? And and then it makes me feel a certain way, and so it just puts me back into where I was at. Instead of, I reached out because I felt like I needed, the reassurance, the confirmation, whatever it was that I needed, that I thought I would get, from somebody. And sometimes that helps. It helps. I mean, it really does. It helps a lot. The positivity towards whatever I'm dealing with, but then to get the negative, then it's just like,
Do you feel like you get more negative sometimes than the positive? Like if you go to social media or something?
yes.
Like, do you feel like You know, do you feel like sometimes that's the only way you can reach out?
Yes, here lately, that is one of the ways that I do reach out. And sometimes I do try to do private, or if I have somebody's number and I text them, you know, and I'm hoping for a response, and you never get that response, but yet you see that they've left you on read, that they've read it, and my thing is you know I was told one time to just suck it up. What if that was, what if that was the straw,
Yeah,
the
the
straw,
time that you
the
really
time
need some-
that I really, really needed somebody, and I ended it.
Have you ever looked into our online counseling? Like, would you be interested in something like that?
It would have to be, I have to like get to know somebody and be comfortable with them in order,
Be able to
to
share.
to be able to share a lot of the things. I mean, because a lot of people know who I am, what I am, you know, and you know, and I'm not ashamed of that.
Yeah.
But to open up to people that I don't know and try to, where they're trying to dig further into my private life that I'm not willing to share with them because I'm not comfortable enough with them.
We offer talk space. I think you should absolutely, just give it a try. Because you get to pick your own counselor. You get to pick, and you can do it through text messaging. You don't have to be like face to face, or, I think you get 2 video chats a month. But I mean, I honestly think that would be something that you could benefit from, and it's free. That's the thing about it, is Talkspace is all completely free. I mean, not to say that we don't have people in DOH. There are mental health crisis people.
Hmm.
I believe they still have that 988 team. They still, you always got Christina and Zach, and those people that focus on mental health. But to me, I feel like, and this is just me personally. I'm not trying to, overlook anything that you said or anything, however you feel. But I know for in my case, that's why I love AA. Like it doesn't matter what I'm going through. I know I can go to this meeting, and there's other people there that have felt the exact same way that I felt. And like when it comes to something that I'm uncertain of and I don't know which direction to go, another way that I turn a lot of it to prayer. Because like I've been so rugged for so long.
You still rugged.
Yeah. Like what the hell? Yeah, what the hell is credit? You know what I mean? What the hell? I thought that meant you go get a front. Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought that's what it meant. I didn't know there's a credit score. Yeah. Like, who's keeping track of how many fronts I got?
Right.
Yeah, but I paid them back. Yeah.
Hey, I know about getting them fronts.
Yeah. But it's there's different parts of my life that I never knew existed.
Hmm.
So I feel troubled, like I start having this mind frame like, oh, is that really meant for me? Like
Hmm.
I start finding ways to dismiss things.
Yeah.
Because I'm not too sure about how to think about these types of things, because I've never been in a situation where I had to think about these things.
Yeah.
So I mean, not to say that because I got sober, I don't face these same kind of dilemmas, but I just feel like they're on a different level. Like my own personal. You might as well say, a lot of it has to do with my ego. Like I got a slick mouth. And it gets me in trouble a lot, but
A lot.
but at the same time,
I don't know how many times you've hurt my feelings.
I'm sorry.
But look
Yeah.
look where I always come back to.
I know.
It's like I just had to come up here to be terrorized every day. Make
We
your
love
days
you, Bob.
here.
We love you, Bob. And you know, I feel like uh you know, it's always just that Indian humor, you know.
Oh yeah.
You know, like that's how I met you.
Oh, I
You
know.
know, was through my brothers. You know what I mean? Like,
Them two. Oof, them three.
you know, like that's
God.
just a relationship we've always had.
Yeah.
You know, and so that's what I stick to. But at the same time, you know, I also do realize, you know, that you know, there's just some parts of your life that
But
I don't think I could ever understand.
liquor store was the only place that gave me credit.
Yeah, lucky.
Yeah, they would keep my debit card until my IIM would hit.
Damn.
Ah,
Where? Yeah.
yeah. Where was that at?
Where was that at? Somebody's been holding out.
Hey, Leah, how you doing? CC, what's
She
Del
doing?
Rancho?
Yeah. She works at Del Rancho.
I know, man. I haven't had a steak sandwich supreme in forever.
I had one when Friday.
Harry likes the steak dinner.
No, I don't. I like the steak.
Steak dinners.
Yeah, somebody got me a steak dinner one time, but it's another mental health crisis I was having. Yeah. But no, so so you know, like what do you feel like you would do if somebody was to say, "Hey Bob, you know, I really need you right now." Like one of your clients, somebody that you had no idea who they were, you just went over there to pick them up and they're like, "Hey, you know, like what do I do?"
I have done that with. I've only had one though. I haven't had, but I literally did have one that was having like, I was taking him to an appointment and he was having like a very serious meltdown in the car. And I was like, uh, I just kept, trying to talk to him and, calm him down and just, reassure him, hey, everything's gonna be all right. Just, sometimes things are put in your way to test you, and just talk him through it, and I've
Yeah.
done that. I've done that. And it's crazy because I mean, I used to fight when I was young, but since I got older, I don't like confrontation anymore. So
When's the last time you got in a fight?
probably
2 weeks
about
ago.
yeah, probably about 14 years ago, right before I got sober.
Did you win?
Yes, I did.
Yeah, I knew he was gonna say that.
I
Well,
did.
hell yeah. You know,
Oh yeah, and I fight like a dude. Yeah, don't look at me like that. They still had both their eyeballs.
Lucky.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not even fair to fight with.
Yeah. Snake eye.
Yeah. You know what it's like.
So, you know, it's like kind of like, is there anything that you feel like you could say to somebody? You know, like what practices do you use, or how do you even realize that you may be dealing with something that you don't know, you know, that maybe you can't handle mentally? Like, is there
My
tools
personal
that you
self?
use? Yeah, like, are there
Oh,
tools? Is there something that you do, or something that helps you realize these things?
if a lot of times, for the longest time before, um, during my drinking and drugging time, and before that, during my marriage, you know, I would never, I would never react to anything, and everything was inside. I just kept it internal, and and I was always worried that at one point I'm gonna unleash on the wrong person for whatever, because I did have anger issues at some point in my life, and my thing was just to, you know, keep it to yourself, keep it inside, you know. So
Have you learned, like, what did you learn from that experience?
that'll make you crazy.
Yeah.
That's why I'm on medication for anxiety. Now because just holding everything in, and that I've talked a lot, beforehand. I did talk to a counselor, and I let everything out, and it made me feel lighter.
Always, yeah.
It made me feel lighter, and but then at one point, then when I finally wound up realizing, that after I told everybody that, depression and anxiety is in your head. Yeah, it's in your head, but it'll make you go crazy. And, I'm on medication for it now, and I don't hold anything in no more. People used to run all over me because of that. You're not supposed to say no. I went through ceremonies. You're not supposed to say no when somebody asks you something. And people used it against me.
Yeah.
And it just made it like my life was, I was just constantly,
It was building up.
that I was doing things for other people and neglecting myself until it finally,
Till that awareness came.
yes. And then once that happened, it doesn't happen anymore. People don't, treat me that way anymore. And I think it is because I spoke up. I'm more vocal now.
Definitely. You'll definitely come up here and let us know.
Oh yeah,
You come up
guys
here
know.
and share.
You guys know when I'm having it. I come up here about 4 or 5, 6 times
Yeah.
a day.
And says, I'm never coming up here again.
Oh my, this guy.
And then turns around and comes right back.
I
But
know they're taking bets, and Darian has got a tally of how many times I say that and how many times I come back up here.
You enjoy it. You enjoy it, and
But
if I ever hurt your feelings, I truly am sorry.
my thing is, for me to come up here and just, that was my coping mechanism
Mm-hmm.
when I had all my issues and holding everything inside, and and I knew that I had depression. I wasn't aware of the anxiety, but I knew that I had the depression, and my medication for that was to make other people laugh.
Yeah.
Just clown around, have a good time. That was my medication. But when I was alone,
Yeah.
and that's how I felt. I felt totally alone. No matter, even if I had people around me, I still felt alone.
Well, I like the way that when people see you coming, like everyone lights up. Because you're gonna come over and you're gonna talk crazy and you're just gonna be yourself. And I think a lot of people appreciate that.
Because I'm myself.
Yeah.
I mean, that's it took me a long time to be my true self, and and it's like I become more every day.
That's
And I'm
good.
just a social butterfly. I have to say good morning to everybody in the building. Like seriously, like I had to go make sure that I make my rounds and say good morning.
Yeah.
Come up here and get my little smudge, and then go on about my day.
Well, we appreciate you coming up. We honestly do. You always make us laugh. And we
I
don't
don't have to do anything to make you laugh. I just had to come into the room.
Yeah. Well, keep coming up.
If I didn't love you guys, I wouldn't be up here.
We appreciate it. We really do. Well, I'm telling you, like we look forward to it because we know it's going to be a funny interaction. You know what I mean? Like you're going to say something, and we're going to say something, and
But you and Darian say the most.
yeah, that's how the couch was born.
Sometimes that couch lets out too much information.
Yeah. Yeah. But I enjoy the banter. Because it's all fun and games, and
Yeah, Dave said, "Don't get turned up, Uncle Boat."
no, man, me and Bob go way back, man. He's just one of those friends that you feel like no matter what, like we're gonna laugh. Like we're always gonna laugh. So, I crack up, because I'll say something to embarrass the hell out of him. And that's what it takes for him to take off. Okay, I'm not saying nothing. I'm getting out of here now.
Yeah, because you just baiting me, wanting me to say something. And
And he's the same way. He's the exact same way. You know, it's pretty funny, but you know, it is what it is. We look forward to it, and it's funny.
Mhm.
You know, and never do we mean to like hurt your feelings, or I know I don't. But you know, and my bad, you know, if I've ever made you feel like that. But I would say 98% of the time, we've always just laughed it off.
Mhm.
You know, so it's always that 2%. Yeah. So since always that 2% that you hold on
that
to.
2% when I'm just like I come up here to just get just a little bit of happiness, and this guy just they get carried away, and so I'm like, okay, that's a little bit too much. Now you're like getting real personal.
Yeah. Making him blush.
Yeah, telling all my secrets.
Well, you know, we are happy that you came on. You know, because most of the time you'll come on and you'll just be right there,
I'll just be staring.
just standing there, staring at. Yeah. See his face? I said, staring at. Yeah. But you know, we appreciate it. You know, we appreciate you coming on today. You know, if there's anything that you could tell anybody that you know may be in your same position or something that you feel like can help somebody out mentally, you know, what would you tell them if somebody was having trouble right now?
I my thing is, and I was just telling somebody this, if it's something, that is causing you to have your mental breakdown, if it's something that no matter what you do, you can't control it, let it go. Don't focus on that. Focus on the positive. Focus on things that you can change. Because that's what gets us into the mindset that where we're just like, you know, I gotta fix this. I gotta fix this, and you can't. No matter how hard you try, you can't. And that's what gets me in my headspace. And so I've learned, for a long time that just let it go. However it comes out, it comes out. So
Well, thank you for sharing that. We appreciate that. And, you know, we appreciate everybody for their comments. Is there any more comments before we go?
Sean Mack said he'd rather be a wolf that no one likes than to be a donkey everyone rides.
yeah.
Hell yeah.
Alfred said, I said, hey, Rob.
Yeah.
And Isaac said, be making his tail wag when he comes in to look at somebody.
See,
Yeah, I ain't coming up here no more.
see, we all know your ways,
Isaac.
Bob. Well, you know, we appreciate you coming on today. Darian was out of the office today. I guess he went to the zoo and they kept him.
God.
So, you know, I guess
In
we're
which
gonna go.
cage?
I guess we're gonna go see if we
get that
can
in
bond them
slow
out.
motion, that double take.
Yeah, I guess we can go see if we can bond them out today. So we'll be heading to the zoo to go do that. But we will be back tomorrow. And thank you once again, Bob, for coming on. This was, you know, a good episode, and we appreciate all the comments. We
You're
like
welcome. Thanks for having me.
Yes. And like, share, follow, tell your mammy about us. And we will see you tomorrow morning. I hope.